Welcome back to Blue Collar Speed and Repair. We're continuing work on our 59 Chevy pickup here. I want to see if we can finish grafting in this narrowed 74 C10 front frame clip. Still got a lot of work to do, and as usual, not a lot of time to do it in. Last couple videos on this thing. First video, we cut off the frame rails, attached the 74 C10 front suspension to this thing. After that was all done, realized that the suspension was 4 inches too wide, so we narrowed it, and unfortunately didn't finish it. So we're going to try to finish up the front clip, see if we can get this thing done and reinforced and all that good stuff. So off camera, I think last time I only had it kind of tacked together. I ran out of time like usual. Off camera, I finished welding everything, cleaned everything up. It's not perfect, which I don't need it to be. You know, there's some dips, there's some ridges. I'm not too concerned with it. Once it's got paint on it and a cab and fenders and everything sitting on it, it's not going to matter anyway. Nobody's going to really see it, right? I don't care about showroom quality. I don't need any trophies from a car show, none of that stuff. I build my stuff for me, and I think it's good enough. So the frame rails themselves are welded together. Now I want to work on reinforcing everything. I welded the center section there. I haven't touched the front yet. We still got to get to that. But so there's a weld here, and then a triangle here, top and bottom, where we pie cut it. And I want to do, I apologize about the lighting, but when we grafted the two frames together, we did a fish plate. You can see I've already cleaned an area. I want to do a fish plate in the front as well, which the angle's going to cause a little bit of an issue, but that's all right. I don't have any material, any 1/8 inch material really, but I got an old frame I can cut chunks out of. So let's make some measurements and start cutting. So our original fish plate, we did 4 inches tall and 6 inches wide. There's two welds up here because we added 1.5 inches. So essentially we can go 7.5 inches, give or take. That put us up into this curve and weld back into here. And then we'll round the edges and all that. So I think pretty much all I did was measured a 6x4 square, found center, and cut the angles out of it just so it's not square. I think we're pretty much going to do the same thing. Let me find a marker that works and some straight edges, stuff like that. Let's see if we can figure this out. So essentially we need roughly 7.5 inches by 4 inches, and then we'll make some angles into it. Going with a section of frame here that doesn't have holes in it. So we mark out 7.5. Should be able to see. In order to keep this kind of square, let's measure that. And then if we do, let's make it a little longer. I mean, this doesn't matter that much, really, because all the edges are going to be rounded anyway. If we come down 4 inches, marked already, but I didn't. Three and 3/4 will be center. But then we need that 1.5 inches. This will make sense here in a minute, sorry, but so we go there and there. Find the center here. 2, let's go 1 inch on the end. Something along those lines. Let me go grab the cutoff wheel and cut this out real quick. Apparently I didn't turn the camera back on before I started cutting. Cut our piece out. Apparently I marked the wrong line, so it's a little off, but that's all right. I'm gonna take this over to the bench grinder, clean up the edges, round this stuff just a little bit. And we're gonna have to put a bend in this in order to get it mounted on our frame. Okay, I'm not sure how I got this thing so out of shape. I did take it to the wire wheel and clean up the powder coating. So I think we need to put a bend basically across here, these two corners that we made, and then round it off. I think we'll put that in the vise, see if we can bend that over. And that should support all of this, hopefully. I did use this as a template to mark the other frame rail. So they'll both be equally as misshapen. Let's see if we can turn this over. Test fit. We'll probably have to do this a couple times. Needs a little more. So other than it being egg-shaped and oddly misshapen, that should do the trick. Again, we're just trying to reinforce those vertical welds and spread that load out a little bit. Again, this is not a race car. It's not going to go down a drag strip, most likely. I just want it to be strong enough for normal driving as best I can. So I'm going to roll the welder back over here, weld that one in. Then we got another one to build. We got to build a fish plate for this section. We got to finish that. We still haven't hooked steering back up. We got a little ways to go. Not my prettiest welds, but it should work. All right, I'm gonna go cut out the other one, weld it into place. Got both the fish plates done. Not my best welding. It's a little difficult to get in there and not a lot of light. Probably the wrong time to start recording in 4K. Oops. Been sitting around contemplating boxing the frame. Originally that's what I planned on doing, but given our angles, the main problem is I don't have the right material. I don't have a plate of 1/8 inch. The fish plates, the frame rails are all 1/8 inch, and obviously we were able to bend that, so we'd be able to bend this angle and this angle. I have some 3/16, but we wouldn't be able to bend that without a lot of heat, and then trying to get the angles right and sharp, I don't think would work out. I think 1/8 inch is what we would need. A couple other issues, like if we were to use the 3/16, we wouldn't be able to bend it, so essentially we'd be doing one piece, another piece, and a third piece, and then welding them together. And I don't feel like boxing in order to strengthen the frame and then having to weld the box would be beneficial. Another thing I noticed is the C10 front frame rails. The top is narrower than the bottom by almost an inch, or about an inch. So we'd either have to cut the bottom of the frame rail out, or we'd have this angle, and then this angle to deal with, which could get really difficult and end up kind of goofy. At the end of the day, this frame and that frame, all the cross members and everything that go into these are all riveted together. And then this front suspension is all bolted in. So these frames are designed to move a little bit. If you ever seen a 4-wheel drive square body do any off-road stuff, and watch the cab and the bed articulate against each other, they move a lot. If this was obviously set up for some kind of racing or some kind of competition or whatever, yeah, we'd want it as stiff as possible, right? But basically I'm at the point where I don't know if stiffening this part of the frame would benefit us any, is basically what I'm getting at. The other option I thought about doing was this line of the frame and this line of the frame are pretty much straight, and it does have a jog at the end. So I thought about boxing, and then it would kind of turn into a fish plate on the inside. So it would come to here and then tie into this side. But again, I don't know if it's going to benefit. I don't know if it's going to help at all. So I think we're going to leave it like it is for now. I'm sorry about these lights. They're really good for the shop, really terrible for the camera. I do apologize. But so I think we're not going to worry about the boxing part for now. If it becomes a problem, then we'll deal with the problem when it becomes a problem. So from here, we're going to move on to the front. I haven't welded the bottom of any of this stuff. I welded like inside this area. I did not weld the bottom of any of this. I haven't welded the bottom of any of this. Haven't welded the bottom of any of that. As well as we haven't even touched the front piece there. So I think we're going to use the piece that we cut out, the 4 inches. We're going to build a plate for the top. Probably have it loop down the back. We'll build a plate for the front. figure out what we're gonna do in the front. We have the piece we cut out there. We can build a plate for that, and then we got to figure out the steering, because that's not going to work out too well. Let me do some cleaning up. Everything's a mess, grinding stuff everywhere and all that, and see if I can find that piece we cut. All right, I got that cleaned up a bit. Obviously, this is the same size, so if I cut it front and back, it's not going to just slide over. But I feel like we should wrap around the front, not the back. The back's only about that tall, and then it's got that angle, and it's double walled at the bottom. I feel like that's already probably strong enough. So if we figure a spot almost all the way to the back, let's go apart. And we're going to do like angles like we did before. If we go most of the way to the bottom of the front. And then we just kind of pick a spot here. No, that's not what I wanted. This way. Well, 4 inches. Go all the way to this area, to where it angles. Can you actually see from over there?
I mean, I can see what you're doing. Just
Kinda.
I'm not sure that we could see the lines.
Yeah. That one down there. All right, and then now I need that. Okay.
You looked on the ground and picked up the washer.
I'd move the cart, but if you got like multiple welders and a plasma cutter, having them all in the same cart is handy, but it's too damn heavy to move. Didn't really think that one through. Alright. Now where do we want to go here though?
Maybe we should use a cart or maybe a bench.
I'd rather just struggle.
Okay.
Trying to line up to this angle here. Kind of like that. So we'll use this section. Let me get the cutoff wheel. I'll cut this out, round all the edges. We'll see what it looks like on there. All right, this is what I came up with. It's got a little bit of a gap at this end, a little bit of a gap at this end. And it doesn't want to sit perfectly straight, of course, because why would it? So I think we're going to do kind of like the fish plates. Got it clamped here. Probably start here, clamp the back down, do back there, and then clamp the front and do that. Which will be a pain because of all this stuff in the way, but we'll make it work. Where's all my stuff? Looks like painted over all my bare spots up over there. Sizzle, sizzle. No. Up just a little bit.
Can you move this over, Ian? Okay.
I did way better on this side than I did that side. Had the angle wrong. Putting too much heat into this side instead of the... Oh, don't melt that. Go like that. All right, I'm gonna finish up this section here. We'll do the bottom part with it up in the air. Good morning. It's a new day. I got a little sidetracked yesterday. It happens. Did get this finished up, at least this section. It's a little crooked. I'm not sure what happened. Probably the way I cut it. Who knows? But at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. Remember, there's going to be an oil pan sitting across here. The crank pulley and harmonic balance and everything sits here. Really, you're not going to see any of this. I don't really care what it looks like. I just want to add strength. I'm not too concerned with looks so much. So, good enough for me. Got to do the same thing here. Going to narrow this down a bit. Do kind of a diamond shape like we did on everything else. And I know this is just me cutting and grinding and welding over and over and over again. And I'm sorry for that, but it's tedious work that needs to get done. And I didn't want to start the next video of whatever it is and go, look, I did stuff. I kind of wanted to share what I'm doing and how I'm doing it and why I'm doing it. So rather than watch me cut and grind and all this stuff some more, you kind of get the idea. I'm just going to knock that out. I'm going to knock that out. I think we got new cab mounts finally. The old brake lines, the old fuel line still sitting back there. The old park brake can come off. I'm not going to worry about all that factory stuff. Wiring and all that stuff we'll figure out later. Hopefully this is the last time the cab gets set on here. So I want to go ahead and hit the whole frame, at least back to the bed, with a wire wheel. Just blast it with some paint real quick. Again, nothing fancy. Just get the rust scale off and cover it in black. I'm not going to bolt the cab on yet. But I do want to stick a couple bolts in just to line it up to make sure it's where it's supposed to be, or at least close to. We'll figure out final bolting down and all that stuff later. So yeah, I'm just going to get rocking, get all that stuff done. We got to do the underside of the K-member still, and still got to figure out this steering, which I think I have something that'll work. Let's get to it. a couple hours later. And that is a lot of work. All the cutting and grinding and welding and all that stuff sure takes a long time. But we got there in the end. Plated the other side of this, finished welding this side. That part was already done. You guys saw that. I welded the bottom of our K-member and plated that. You see I left a hole, so if anything gets in this channel, it has a place to go. As well as this is the plate that was originally in the middle. Had a hole in the middle of it as well. So I'm going to, you see I didn't finish welding the center. I'm going to drill that out. So again, if anything gets in the K-member, it has somewhere to go. Finish welding up the bottoms of the frame rails. I didn't clean up the bottom side of the cross member of the frame rails or any of that stuff yet. I'll get to that later. It's not a huge deal. I did put a couple bolts in the cab, so it is lined up. I'm not going to bolt anything down or tighten anything yet, but this cab does have to come off again. I was looking around a little closer. We got a little rust in the floorboards. I didn't see that before. As well as up and around and into where it goes in the firewall just a little bit. So this cab's going to need a little bit of work. Nothing too crazy. All in all, I think it's going to be just fine. I still might go back and box that frame section. I'm not sure. I think it's strong enough for what we're going to do. Again, if we were trying to race or be competitive or anything like that, realistically, we'd be putting a full like custom boxed and gusseted and all that frame in it anyway, which I thought about. Man, they're expensive though. But I had all these parts, wanted to use them. I think this is going to work. And if it doesn't, realistically, all these parts can come off and go on to something else. We're out front section of frame rail, which is still sitting outside. I can weld that back together if I have to. But I think this is going to work. We're still a long road ahead, of course. A lot of stuff to do. We still got to figure out engine mount and trans mount. I haven't touched the rear end yet because I don't want to do anything with that until we have the front kind of finalized. So I think the only thing left to do now to kind of finish this is hook up the steering and try to figure that out. I have a piece of tubing that'll fit over this. So I think we're going to weld it up, grind it down smooth, and then just put a piece of tubing over it to strengthen it. And we'll be done with this. So let me take this link off and get it on the bench, and we'll weld it up. Got our link bar off, got it sitting over here on the cart. Found a piece of pipe. Fits pretty good. It's a little loose, but I think it'll do the trick. Best way to do this here. Something like that maybe. I had this all lined up. And in that area, I did a bevel on both of our pieces here. Now I realize the way this is set up, it has a slight bow, which I kind of want. This is the inside, or the bottom is the inside. It's closest to the K-member. We got kind of tight clearances there already because of especially with the bracing that we put in. So if this has a slight bow outwards, I'm actually okay with it. Remember that this is just a drag link. It's not a 4-link bar or anything. There's no twisting. There's no pressure this way really. The pressure and force is this direction. And once this is welded and then this pipe is over the top and welded on each end, if we break these 3 welds, we're probably in trouble anyway. So I don't think it being at a slight angle is going to make a difference. And I was going to drill holes and plug weld this, but again, same scenario. There's no twisting force, so I don't think it's going to be a problem. So I'm going to weld this up. I did put marks on it. I don't know if you can see it. to keep it in line, although sitting on the two links at this end keeps it in line anyway. Weld this up, grind it down, grind back a ways so we have good clean metal. Weld that back up, or excuse me, weld the pipe onto it. We should be good to install it. Got the steering link all reinstalled. I think that's going to work just fine. I know it looks crooked, but it's not. This plate that I welded on is actually at a slight angle because I couldn't get it clamped down very well. That's as close as it'll ever get. Remember, the pitman arm and the idler arm work in an arc. So when it gets steered left or right, it'll actually pull this farther away. So I think that's going to work fine. And that pretty much completes our front frame swap. At least the cutting and welding part. We still got to figure out bumper mount and how to mount this front end, all that stuff. All that being said, I am not a fabricator by trade. I am not a welder by trade. So this is just blue collar hobby work. I don't really know what I'm doing. I'm just I have a vision in my head, and I'm trying to obtain it, if that makes any sense to you. Is there better ways to do this? I'm sure. Is there stronger ways to do this? I'm sure there are. All that being said, will this work? I think so. If it doesn't, then we'll jump off that bridge when we come to it. I don't know. So all that being said, I still do have a concern, and that is still with the steering. And let me put this thing down, set this front clip back in place, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. So I got this front end sitting on jack stands. Front clips back on, obviously. The issue I have is, although it looks really, really cool, we're still going to have clearance issues when turning. We're not going to get, full turning lock to lock. There's a couple different ways around this, I guess. These are an 8-inch wide wheel with a 4.5-inch back spacing. To get more back spacing would probably be a custom wheel. I always pictured this thing with a steel wheel, like a Detroit or whatever, and I know they're 18s, 20, 22, whatever size you want to go. You can get 4 3/4-inch back spacing, which would set it in another 1/4 inch, obviously. I mean, the other options are, this has a 2.5-inch drop spindle and a 2.5-inch drop spring. We could put a stock spring back in it and raise this thing up, but I always wanted this thing on airbags. So we could go ahead and bite the bullet and do airbags. And then we just set the right height to whatever we want it, as, figure out what pressure we need to set the right height so that everything clears, if that makes sense. Because you got to remember, there's no hood on this, there's no engine, no transmission, there's no people sitting in it. This is going to drop even farther, and then you run into cornering. The truck's going to, even though there's a sway bar for it over there, it's going to move side to side when cornering. That's just the way it is. The C10 cornered really good, but there's still body roll. There's not really a good way to get rid of all of it. So that's my next step. And I got to figure all that out and figure out what we're doing there before I move on to the rear, because I got to have the front ride height set before I start working on the rear, because that's going to have to be all custom too. Again, there's not a good way to leaf, like if we do leaf springs, it's probably custom mounts. I don't know if a C-notch is enough. Realistically, it needs to be 4-link, and then if we do, you know, build it for coils or coilovers, are we gonna have to do a step notch? And if we're doing all that, I don't want to fabricate stuff for coils or coilovers if ultimately I want to put airbags in it anyway. So I got some decisions to make and come up with some ideas here. I know there's a million ways to build any hot rod really, but I want to build it my way. I want it my way. You know how it is. So all that being said, I think that's where we're leaving this video. Did run into another issue with the extending the frame, that 1.5 inches that we did. I can't get this fender all the way back because now the core support is hitting the steering box. And we have to fabricate mounts for all this anyway, so we're probably gonna have to cut these mounts out and redo all that, but that is a problem for another day. So got engine and transmission to mount up and figure that out. Like I said, rear end. We got to figure out steering. We got to figure out brakes. We got to figure out clutch pedals. We got to figure out a lot of stuff still. There is a long, long list of stuff to do. Excuse me. And I know this video is kind of a lot of just cutting and grinding and welding, but it's stuff I had to get done anyway. And might as well show you guys kind of what I'm doing, what steps I'm taking. So thank you very much for watching. I appreciate you guys very much. Like, comment, subscribe, all that stuff. You guys are awesome. The first video on this thing blew up. I appreciate it very much. Well, it blew up for me anyway. I think it's a little over 6,000 now, which is a lot for my channel. I'm still starting out, still small. So if you haven't yet, please hit the subscribe button. I appreciate it very much. Doesn't cost you nothing. Helps me out tremendously. All that good stuff. I'm rambling on. I've got a huge mess to clean up and a bunch of tools and stuff to put away. So again, thank you very much for watching. I appreciate it very much. We will see you guys next time.